There is a person on your street who is always calm, and for a long time it quietly annoyed you. You have seen them at the edge of a small garden just after sunrise, a cup of something warm in one hand, doing almost nothing. Not rushing, not scrolling, not fixing. Just standing there in the cool part of the morning, looking at a patch of soil as if it were about to say something. You assumed they were relaxing. You assumed they had less on their mind than you do, fewer bills, fewer worries, an easier life somewhere behind them. That is the first thing this video is going to take away from you, because it is not true, and the truth is far more useful. By the time this ends, you will know the single slow thing that the calmest people past 60 almost all do, why it works on the body in a way no supplement matches, and why almost nobody names it out loud. It is not meditation, though it looks like it from a distance. It is not money, though people assume that too. It is something older, something with dirt under its fingernails, and once you see it, you will start noticing it everywhere. Here is what you probably got wrong about that person at the edge of the garden. They were not resting. They were waiting. There is a difference, and the difference is the whole point. Resting is what you do when you are trying to recover from a pace. Waiting is what you do when you have made peace with a pace that is not yours to control. That patch of soil does not answer to a calendar. It does not care that you are behind. It moves at the only speed it has ever moved, and standing next to it every morning does something to a person over the years. You have felt the opposite of this. You know the particular tiredness that has nothing to do with sleep. You lie down and your body is exhausted, and your mind is still moving at the speed of a screen, still refreshing, still bracing for the next thing. You wake and the first feeling is not rest. It is the low hum of everything you have not done yet. That hum has a cost, and after a certain age the bill starts coming due in your blood pressure, in your sleep, in the way small things suddenly feel large. The calm person on your street pays a different bill. They pay it in mornings. They pay it in the willingness to stand next to something that will not hurry, and to let that slowness leak into them a little at a time. This is the slow thing. It is not the plants. The plants are just the excuse. What they are really practicing is a kind of attention that the whole modern world has spent 30 years teaching you to lose. And here is the part that should stop you. This is not a personality. You did not miss out on it by being born a certain way. It is closer to a muscle, and like any muscle it can be built at any age, which means the calm you envied is available to you, starting this season, in a corner of a yard or a single pot on a step. But there is a reason most people never build it, and the reason is not laziness. It is something more honest than that, something almost nobody admits until much later than they should. So watch the calm ones for a moment before we go further. Watch how they move through a garden, or a kitchen, or a Sunday. There is a slowness there that looks like they have given up, and it is the exact opposite of giving up. It is the slowest form of holding on there is. Before this is over, you will understand what they were really waiting for on those mornings, and why it was never the plants at all. Because the thing they figured out is the same thing your grandparents knew without a single word for it. And somewhere in the last few decades, almost everyone quietly let it go. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Slow down for a moment and think about the people in your own life who carry that unhurried steadiness, the ones whose company actually lowers your shoulders when you walk into the room. Picture them clearly. Not the loud ones, not the ones performing calm on a screen, the real ones. Someone in their late 60s who moves through a hard week like weather that will pass. An older relative whose kitchen felt like a place where time ran differently. A neighbor whose face never seemed to be somewhere else while you were talking to them. Now notice what almost all of them have in common. There is usually something they tend: a vegetable bed, a row of pots on a windowsill, a few fruit trees they talk about the way other people talk about grandchildren, a patch of ground that they return to not once, not in a burst of spring enthusiasm, but across years, through failures and frosts and the seasons when nothing came up at all. It is easy to look at that and call it a hobby. It is not a hobby. A hobby is something you do to fill time. This is something they do to keep time, which is a different act entirely. You have probably felt the shape of this without naming it. Have you ever visited someone who grows things and left feeling strangely settled without being able to say why? You did not learn anything. Nobody gave you advice. You just stood near a person who is on speaking terms with slowness, and for an hour you borrowed it. That borrowing is real, and it points at something you can own instead of borrow. You can test the pattern yourself quietly this week. Think of the three people whose presence steadies you the most, the ones you call when the day has come apart. Then ask what each of them tends. It will not always be a garden. Sometimes it is a small orchard, sometimes a few pots on a balcony, sometimes bread or a workshop or an animal, some living or slow-moving thing they return to on a schedule the world did not set for them. The specific object varies. The relationship almost never does. There is nearly always a corner of their life that runs on a slow clock, kept faithfully, for no reward anyone else can see. Once you spot it in the people you already trust, this stops being a theory about strangers and becomes a description of something sitting in plain view in your own life. Here is a number worth sitting with. The people who reach very old age with their minds intact and their spirits level are, over and over, the people who kept a hand in something living. Researchers keep bumping into this from different directions, expecting to find that it was the exercise or the fresh food or the fresh air, and finding instead that the strongest thread is harder to measure. It is the daily returning. The same corner, the same soil, the same slow checking of what changed overnight. The consistency is the medicine, not the intensity. Think about how strange that is next to everything the last 20 years told you. You were sold speed as a virtue. Faster mornings, faster meals, faster answers, a phone that removes every gap and every weight from your day. And the people aging best are quietly doing the opposite. They are protecting the gaps. They are keeping one part of life deliberately, stubbornly slow, and they guard it the way you might guard a savings account, because in a sense that is exactly what it is. You may be thinking that this is just what people do when they finally have time, after the work ends and the house empties, that the calm came first and the garden came after, a reward for a life already settled. Hold on to that thought because it is the most common misreading of the whole thing, and it has the order exactly backwards. The calm did not make the garden possible. The garden, or something like it, is a large part of what made the calm. And that reversal matters enormously to you, whatever age you are right now, because if calm were simply a reward that arrives once life gets easy, there would be nothing to do but wait and hope your life eases. But if it works the other way, if the slow thing is a cause and not a consequence, then it is available before your life eases in the middle of the noise, starting now. That is not a small hope. That is a door. So the pattern is not really about gardens. It is about a specific relationship with time that a garden happens to teach better than almost anything else. To understand why it works, you have to look at what that one slow thing actually is underneath, because it is not the digging, and it is not the harvest, and it is not even really the plants. Strip away the tomatoes and the roses and the neat rows, and here is what is left. The one slow thing is this. It is placing your attention on something that will not respond to your urgency day after day, and letting it teach your nervous system a pace it forgot. That is the whole of it. Everything else is decoration. Notice how much that definition leaves out. It does not require a big yard. It does not require knowing the names of anything. It does not require money or a good back or an expert. It requires one living thing and the willingness to show up for it slowly and often. A single pot of herbs on a kitchen sill can carry the whole lesson if you actually attend to it. The scale is not the point. The relationship is the point, and the relationship has one non-negotiable rule. You cannot make it go faster. That rule is exactly what makes it powerful, because it is the one rule the rest of your life no longer has. Almost everything you touch in a day is built to obey your impatience. The screen loads faster so you do not leave. The meal heats in 90 seconds. The message sends the instant you press it. You have been trained, gently and relentlessly, to expect that wanting a thing sooner should make it come sooner, and when it does not, to feel that low friction of frustration in your chest. A living thing refuses to play that game. You can want the seed to sprout with your whole heart, and it will take exactly as long as it takes. Standing inside that refusal every day does something quiet and enormous. The first week it may irritate you, the way silence irritates someone who is used to noise. But somewhere in the second month a small surrender happens, almost without your permission. You stop leaning on the thing. You stop mentally yanking it forward. You start for a few minutes each morning to move at the speed of the ground instead of the speed of the screen, and your body notices before your mind does. Your breathing changes near soil. People who have never gardened report it the first time, that they took a full breath without deciding to. This is why the calm ones look like they are meditating when they stand at the edge of a bed doing nothing. In a real sense they are, except no one had to sell them an app or a technique or a retreat. The plant is the teacher and the lesson is free, and it repeats every single day without ever getting bored of you. Miss a morning and it does not scold you. Come back and it is still there, still slow, still willing to set your pace back to something a body can survive at for 80 years. There is a reason this particular slow thing beats the others people try. You can walk, you can swim, you can sit still and count your breaths, and all of that helps. But most of those are things you do to yourself by discipline, against the current of your own restlessness. And discipline is a fund that runs low exactly when you need it most. The garden is different. It pulls the calm out of you instead of asking you to push it out. It gives you a reason to be slow that is not about being slow, and that indirectness is the secret. Nobody sticks with slowing down for its own sake. Everybody will show up for a thing they are quietly proud of that is depending on them. So the one slow thing is a trick in the best sense. It smuggles patience into a life that would never sit still long enough to practice patience directly. It hands you calm through the back door while you think you are just growing beans. And that raises the real question, the one underneath all of this. Why did the fast way stop working for you somewhere after 40 when it seemed to work fine for so long? Because it did work for a while. And then something changed, and almost no one warns you about it in advance. For the first half of a life, speed pays. You can run on adrenaline and short sleep in the next goal and it carries you. You build the career, raise the family, meet the deadline, and the cost is invisible because your body is young enough to absorb it overnight. You wake up and the tank is full again. That refill is what youth actually is, underneath everything else. It is the ability to spend recklessly and not see the bill. Then somewhere in the 40s, for many people, the refill slows. Not dramatically, not all at once. You just notice that the bad night costs more than it used to. The stressful week lingers in your body into the weekend. The second wind that always came comes later or not at all. This is not weakness and it is not decline in the way you fear. It is your system telling you the truth it was hiding while you were young. The truth is that living braced, living fast, living slightly alarmed all day was always expensive. You could just afford it before, and now you cannot. There is a real machinery under this. Your body has a stress response built for a short sprint away from danger, a fast flood of hormones that sharpens you and then is supposed to switch off. It was never designed to hum along quietly all day, every day, for decades. But that is what modern life asks of it. 1,000 tiny alarms, none of them a real predator, none of them fully switching off. For years your body clears that flood efficiently. Over time the clearing gets slower, and the residue of all that low-grade alarm starts to show up as the things people blame on age. The blood pressure that creeps, the sleep that thins, the belly that will not go, the mood that dips for no reason you can name. Here is what almost no one tells you. A large part of what gets called aging is really the accumulated cost of never fully switching off. It is not that your body got old and therefore anxious. It is that your body ran the alarm for 40 years and is finally sending the invoice. And that reframing should give you hope, because an invoice implies there is something you were doing that you could do differently, starting now. This is exactly where the slow thing earns its place. Standing next to something that will not hurry is one of the few reliable ways to make that alarm switch fully off, all the way off, for a stretch of minutes each day. Not distracted, the way a screen distracts, which just swaps one alarm for a prettier one. Actually off. The heart rate settles. The shoulders drop without instruction. The internal narrator that has been listing your failures since you opened your eyes goes quiet, because there is genuinely nothing to solve in front of a plant. You cannot argue a seed into growing. There is nothing to do but be present, and presence is the exact state your overworked system has been starving for. Do that most mornings for a year and something measurable shifts. The baseline moves. You are not calmer only in the garden. You are calmer at the dinner that goes wrong, in the traffic, in the doctor's waiting room, because you have spent a year teaching your body that switching off is possible and allowed. The garden was the classroom. The calm graduates and follows you out the gate. This is why the fast people you know are often the tired ones now, and the slow ones are often the steady ones, even when their lives are not easier at all. It was never about how hard the life was. It was about whether there was one daily place where the alarm was permitted to stop. The calm person on your street built that place out of soil, and it has been quietly saving them for years. And what it saves is not only the mood, it reaches deeper into the body than you would guess. Kneel down at the edge of a bed and put your hands into cool soil for a moment, and something happens that is older than any of your ideas about health. Set aside the calm for now and look at the plain physical facts, because they are strange enough on their own. Your hands in the ground are not just a nice image. They are a set of small, real events in your body, and researchers have spent years quietly cataloging them with a kind of surprise. Start with the light. Morning sun on your skin and in your eyes early before the day is bright sets a clock deep in your brain that governs when you sleep that night. People who get that early light garden themselves into better sleep without ever connecting the two. The tiredness that finally feels like real tiredness at 10 in the evening, instead of the wired exhaustion that will not land, often traces straight back to standing outside in the first hour of light. The garden gets you out there for a reason that has nothing to do with sleep, and repairs your sleep as a side effect. Then the soil itself. There is a common bacterium in healthy dirt that, in study after study, appears to nudge the brain toward producing more of the chemistry associated with steady mood, the same chemistry that many medications reach for from another direction. Get your hands in the ground and you are, in a small and real way, dosing yourself with something the body reads as calming. Your grandparents did not know the name of that microbe. They only knew that a bad mood often lifted after an hour in the garden, and they trusted the pattern without the explanation. Then movement, the kind almost no one counts. Gardening is not exercise the way a gym is exercise, and that is precisely its genius. It is the slow, varied, low-load movement your body was actually built for, bending and reaching and carrying and crouching, spread across an hour without a single moment that feels like a workout. It keeps the hips open and the hands strong and the balance sharp, the exact abilities that quietly decide whether the last decades of a life are independent or not. And it does all of it while you think you are only checking on the beans. Then attention, which may matter most of all. To tend a living thing, you have to actually look at it closely, noticing what changed since yesterday. And that kind of soft, patient looking is a form of mental exercise that the fast world almost never asks of you. It is the opposite of the fractured, jumping attention a screen trains. Hold that soft focus most days, and you are keeping a part of the mind limber that tends to stiffen with age, the part that can rest on one thing without clawing for the next. Then the plain fact of touch, which the modern day has almost entirely engineered out of a life. Most of what your hands do now is tap glass and press buttons, smooth, cool surfaces that give nothing back. Soil gives everything back. It is cool and grainy and alive. It holds the temperature of the morning. It clings to your skin and reminds you, through the oldest sense there is, that you have a body and that the body is standing on the actual earth. That contact is quietly grounding in a way no one can quite explain, but nearly everyone feels. There is a reason a hard day so often eases the moment your hands go into the dirt. The body was built for that texture, and it has been starving for it without knowing the name of what it missed. Put it together and the picture is almost comic in how complete it is. Better sleep, steadier mood, gentle strength, sharper balance, calmer attention, all of it delivered by an activity most people file under passing the time. If a company could bottle that combination, it would be the most valuable product on earth, and it would cost a fortune, and everyone would want it. It already exists. It costs the price of a packet of seeds and the willingness to show up slowly and often. The catch, and there is always a catch, is the one thing the modern person finds hardest to spend. Not money, patience, time given without a guaranteed return. And that is the real border between the calm ones and the rest. Not knowledge, not luck, not an easier life. The willingness to pour attention into something for weeks before it gives anything back. Which brings us, finally, to what that person at the edge of the garden was actually waiting for on all those quiet mornings, because it was never the tomatoes. Go back to the beginning, to the person standing at the edge of the soil at sunrise with a warm cup, doing almost nothing. You assumed they were waiting for the plants to grow. They were not. A gardener knows perfectly well that watching does not make anything grow faster, and after enough years, they stop expecting the morning to deliver a visible result at all. So what were they waiting for, standing there day after day in front of ground that changes too slowly to see? They were waiting for nothing. And that is the entire secret, the thing that took them years to learn and that no one can hand you in a sentence, though people keep trying. They had learned how to wait for nothing in particular and be at peace inside the waiting. Not bored, not restless, not checking how long it had been. Simply present in a stretch of time that was not going anywhere and did not need to. That capacity, the ability to be in unhurried time without clawing to fill it, is one of the rarest and most protective things a person can own in this century, and almost nobody is born knowing how. Think about how completely the modern world has erased that capacity. Every empty moment now has a filler within arm's reach. The line at the store, the wait for the kettle, the pause in a conversation, all of it immediately plugged with a screen, so that you never sit inside an unfilled minute long enough to remember how. A whole generation is losing the ability to simply wait, to let time be unproductive, and the loss shows up as a low anxiety that never fully quiets, because a mind that cannot tolerate an empty minute cannot ever really rest. The gardener rebuilt that capacity by accident. Tending something slow forces you, morning after morning, to stand inside time that will not perform for you, until one day you notice you are no longer fighting it. The waiting stopped being something to endure and became something almost sweet. That is the state you saw on their face and mistook for laziness or luck. It was not laziness. It was a hard one piece with the passage of time itself, and it is the thing under all the other benefits, the root the whole plant grows from. This is why the calm cannot really be rushed or bought, and why the fast fixes never hold. You can buy the raised bed and the good tools and the perfect seeds and still not have it, because the thing itself is the waiting, and the waiting cannot be purchased or hurried, only lived. It is the one part of the whole business that has to be done at the speed of a life, and that is exactly why it works on a body running too fast. It is the antidote made of the very thing the poison lacks. And now you can feel the reversal from earlier landing fully. The calm did not come first and allow the garden. The waiting came first, practiced clumsily and then better, and the calm grew up out of it like everything else in that soil, which means the person you envied was not luckier than you. They were earlier than you. They started standing inside slow time before you did, and it compounded morning after morning into the steadiness you can see from across the street. That should land as good news and as a small ache at the same time. Good news because it is learnable and you can begin the standing today. And an ache because it points at how much of this we used to have without trying and how quietly we set it down. To understand what it will take to pick it back up, you have to see clearly what we traded it for, because the trade was real, and most people never noticed they were making it. There is an old photograph in a lot of families, or the memory of one, of a grandparent standing in a garden that took up most of a yard. Not decorative, working. Rows of beans and potatoes and whatever else the season gave. A patch of ground that fed people and asked for an hour of attention every single day. For most of human history, nearly everyone had some version of that, whether they wanted it or not. A relationship with a piece of living ground was not a lifestyle choice. It was simply part of being alive. Look at how fast that vanished. In the span of 2 or 3 generations, a species that had always kept a hand in the soil moved indoors, onto pavement, into screens, and the daily garden shrank from a necessity to a hobby to a thing that other people do. The change felt like pure progress, and in many ways it was. Fewer aching backs, more free time, food that arrives without a season's labor. Nobody would seriously vote to return to subsistence. But every trade has two sides, and the side we lost was never counted, because it did not show up on any ledger. What we traded away was the daily practice of slowness, delivered by necessity, whether or not we had the discipline to choose it. That is the part worth grieving honestly. Your grandparents did not have to be wise or disciplined to get their hour of unhurried time in the soil. Life handed it to them as part of the deal. They stood inside slow time every day because they had to eat, and the calm came free with the carrots. We removed the necessity, which was a mercy, and we did not notice that the necessity had been carrying the calm the whole time. Now the slowness has to be chosen, and choosing is much harder than being made to. This is the quiet catch inside all our progress. Every convenience that freed us from a slow task also freed us from the calm that the slow task smuggled in. The bread machine freed us from kneading and took the 10 quiet minutes of kneading with it. The delivery freed us from the walk to the market and took the walk. One by one, we automated away the small, unhurried acts that used to hold a day together, and we called it efficiency, and we did not feel the loss as loss. We felt it as a vague, rising restlessness that we blamed on 100 other things. So the people who garden now are doing something their grandparents never had to do. They are choosing on purpose to put back one of the slow necessities that progress removed. They are volunteering for a small, unpaid, unhurried duty in an age that removed almost all of them. And that voluntary quality is the whole reason it works as medicine now, because it is the one place in a frictionless life where they have deliberately kept the friction. They kept a reason to wait. They kept a chore that cannot be sped up. They kept a corner of existence that still runs on the old clock. This is why it can feel almost radical to grow your own food today, out of proportion to the small size of the act. You are not just raising a few vegetables. You are opting back into a rhythm that the entire modern economy is built to sell you out of. You are reclaiming, in one small square of ground, the daily slowness that used to come standard and now comes only to those who insist on it. That is not nostalgia for its own sake. It is the deliberate recovery of something that was quietly load-bearing, and that we removed without knowing it was holding the roof up. The good news is that you do not need the whole vanished world back. You do not need the acre or the subsistence or the aching back. You need one honest corner of the old rhythm, kept on purpose, and that is small enough to begin this week. So the last real question is the practical one. If the slow thing is this available and this powerful, how does a person who has never done it actually begin, without it becoming one more task on a list that already exhausts them? Here is where most people go wrong before they even start. So start by not doing what they do. They treat the garden like every other project in their life. They research it hard, buy too much, build a large, ambitious bed, plant 40 things at once, and turn a slow practice into one more sprint with a deadline and a chance to fail. Then, when half of it dies in July because they took on too much, they decide they have a brown thumb and quietly stop, having proven a thing about themselves that was never true. They did not fail at gardening. They imported the fast world into the one place that was supposed to cure them of it. The slow thing has to begin slowly, or it is not the slow thing at all. So begin absurdly small, smaller than your pride wants. One pot, 3 herbs or a single tomato plant or a few lettuce seeds in a container by the door you use most. Something you will walk past several times a day without effort, so that tending it becomes woven into a path you already walk, not a new errand you have to remember. The goal in the first season is not a harvest. The goal is to build the daily returning, the muscle of showing up, and a small thing builds that muscle better than a big thing, because a small thing is easy to keep. Then make the return the whole practice, not the growth. Each morning or each evening, whichever fits the shape of your day, go and look at the thing for a few minutes. Not to fix it, not to make it grow, just to see what changed since yesterday, to feel the soil and decide whether it needs water, to stand there in the small, unproductive minutes that are actually the point. You are not gardening in those minutes so much as practicing the exact capacity we have been circling this whole time, the ability to be in slow time without reaching for your phone. The plant is just what gives your hands and eyes something honest to do while your nervous system learns. Let go of needing to know anything first. This trips up capable people more than almost anything because they are used to studying a subject before they are allowed to begin, and a garden does not work that way. You do not need the names of things. You do not need to understand the science or the timing or the soil chemistry, and you certainly do not need to be good at it. The plant does the growing. Your only job is to show up and pay attention, and attention is not a skill you have to acquire. It is one you already have and have simply been spending on screens. Let the season teach you in its own order, one small surprise at a time, the way it has taught every gardener who ever lived. most of whom knew far less than you could learn in an afternoon. Beginning ignorant and slightly unsure is not a problem to fix before you start. It is the correct and only way anyone has ever started. Expect to be bad at the standing at first. Expect the restlessness, the itch to check something, the voice that says this is a waste of time. There are real things to do. That voice is not the truth. That voice is the withdrawal symptom of a mind trained on speed, and it fades a little each day you do not obey it. Within a few weeks, the few minutes stop feeling like a chore and start feeling like the calmest part of the day. The way a hard walk stops feeling like punishment once the body remembers it. You are not forcing calm. You are removing the friction that was blocking it. Let things die and stay anyway. This is the part that separates the people who get the calm from the people who quit. Things will die. A plant will fail for reasons you cannot trace, and it will feel absurdly like a small personal verdict. It is not. Every experienced gardener has killed more than they can count, and the killing is not the opposite of skill, it is how the skill is built. The calm ones are not the ones who never failed. They are the ones who kept returning to the soil after the failures, until returning became who they are. The staying is the skill, everything else is detail. And that is genuinely the whole method. Start smaller than your pride wants. Return daily and let the returning be the point. Endure the early restlessness until it turns to peace. Stay through the deaths. Do that for one season, one honest season of showing up to one small living thing, and you will not have to be told what happens next because you will have become, quietly and without announcing it, one of the calm people you used to watch from across the street. But there is one last thing the slow thing gives, and it is larger than calm, and it is the reason any of this lasts. Under the calm, under the better sleep and the steadier mood, the slow thing gives something that reaches all the way down into how you hold yourself, and it deserves to be named plainly. It gives back your trust in your own patience, and once that trust is gone, almost everything in a life gets harder in ways you would never think to connect to it. Consider what a fast life quietly teaches you about yourself. Every instant result, every skipped weight, every problem solved by throwing speed or money at it, sends a small message underneath that you are not the kind of person who can wait for a good thing to arrive slowly, that you need it now or you will lose interest or nerve or faith. Live inside that message long enough and you stop attempting anything that pays off slowly. You abandon the long project, the slow friendship, the gradual change in yourself, not because you are lazy, but because you no longer believe you are someone who can stay the course of a slow good thing. That lost belief is one of the heaviest costs of a fast age, and it hides well. The garden rebuilds that belief from the ground up, one honest proof at a time. You plant a seed and you doubt it quietly, the way you doubt every slow thing now. Then weeks pass and you keep showing up without any evidence, and one morning there is a green thread pushing out of the dark, and something in you that had gone slack pulls tight again. You waited for a good thing without proof, and the good thing came. That is not a lesson about plants. That is direct physical evidence, delivered to your own eyes, that you are still someone who can trust a slow process and be rewarded. And you cannot argue yourself into that belief. You can only be shown it over and over until it is yours again. Watch what that restored trust does once it returns. It leaks out of the garden into everything, the same way the calm did. You become willing again to begin things that will not pay off for years, because you have living proof that you are someone who sees slow things through. The relationship you were too impatient to repair, the skill you were too old to start, the change in your own body or habits that only shows after a long, faithful stretch of no visible result. All of it becomes possible again once you have retaught yourself in the soil that you can wait for good things and that good things come to those who keep showing up. The garden is small. What it restores is not. And this is the deepest reason the calm ones are calm. It is not only that their nervous systems learned a slower pace. It is that they trust themselves inside time in a way most people have quietly lost. They are not braced against the future, grabbing at fast certainty, because they have proven to themselves 1,000 mornings running that patience is not a weakness or a waste. It is a power. Maybe the last power that the modern world cannot sell you and cannot speed up and cannot take, because you have to grow it yourself, slowly, in the only pace it has ever grown. So the thing you envied across the street was never really about the vegetables. It was a person who had rebuilt, morning by morning, their trust in slow time and in their own ability to stand inside it. That trust made them calm, and it made them durable, and it made them the kind of presence that lowers your shoulders when you walk into their kitchen. And it is not theirs by luck or by age. It is theirs by practice, which means it can be yours by practice too, starting with one small living thing and the willingness to wait for nothing in front of it. So go back one last time to the beginning, to that person at the edge of the garden just after sunrise, a warm cup in one hand, standing in front of a patch of soil that is not doing anything you can see. You know now what you are looking at. Not someone with an easier life, not someone born calm. Someone who, over many quiet mornings, taught their body a pace it could survive at, taught their mind to rest inside unhurried time, and taught themselves, one green thread at a time, that they are still the kind of person who can wait for a good thing and trust it to come. The stillness on their face is not emptiness. It is the fullest thing there is. It is a person at peace with the speed of being alive. And the soil in front of them is doing everything, precisely because it refuses to hurry. It is holding a small daily place where the alarm switches all the way off. It is dosing them with morning light and steady chemistry and gentle movement and soft attention, all at once, disguised as a chore. It is keeping alive in them the one capacity the whole loud century is trying to erase, the ability to stand in an empty minute and feel it as peace instead of pressure. They are not waiting for the plants. They stopped needing the plants to do anything years ago. They are simply standing inside slow time on purpose and letting it make them well. You can start where they started, and you do not need their years or their yard. You need one small living thing, a corner you already pass, and the willingness to show up slowly and often and wait for nothing in front of it. You will be bad at the waiting first. Everyone is now. Then one morning it will turn, the way it always turns for those who stay, and the few slow minutes will become the part of the day that holds all the rest together. That is the whole secret the calm ones never say out loud, and now it is not a secret from you. The fast world will always promise you calm by tomorrow. The garden is the one honest voice left that tells you the good things only ever come at the speed of something growing, and that you were always meant to grow at that speed too.